Well, I would say it was important to have this debate because what I would say there's a separation of power between the executive, the judiciary, the legislature. You know, the government had put forward a proposal to negotiate in the best interest of the country, and they were acting on the basis, look, do you know what? We had a referendum, and as a result of the referendum, there was a majority, although people say a small majority, but the point I raised in Parliament, and I raised it to all members of Parliament, if members of Parliament had won their seat by one vote, would they then come to Parliament and say, I can't take my seat, I don't have a mandate? They would all come and take their seats. So the reality is we have got a mandate.
Spent heaven knows what of our money, because they won't tell us, on a court case, right, to prevent the debates that we've had from happening, knowing, though, they had a majority and the debates were always going to be... the government was always going to win. I genuinely don't understand what the last 2 weeks have been about.
Well, look, what I would say, the government felt, when they took the position to say, look, we do not need to go before Parliament. The reason they felt they did not have to go before the Parliament, because there was a referendum...
Non-legally binding.
And do you know what? That's why, if you ask me, the error made by the previous Prime Minister, David Cameron,
yes,
when they make bad legislation, you know, because he felt that the exit would not happen and therefore it would not get taken forward, and then the judges got blamed for interpreting it, you know,
so David Cameron
wrong.
Got it wrong.
I would say if Parliament wanted a clear decision, then they would have said that referendum should not be advisory, that should be binding.
My concern is for the 48%, or in Tim Farron's view, the 80%, whose views and concerns are now, in terms of paper at least, are not reflected at all. How is that good for the British people?
Well, look, what we're saying at the moment is this is procedure. The court, the Supreme Court, where we have the checks and balances on our institutions, have said the Parliament has to pass an act to say the government can invoke Article 50. They did not say we have to set out the terms.
Should there not have been some amendments to reflect some of the concerns of the 48%?
But Matthew, the point... But
should there not have been some amendments to reflect those?
But we haven't even started the negotiations, so how can we put on there what we're going to have or what we're not going to have? What the government have made it very clear is once we negotiate with Europe, you know, then we're going to come back, and what they've negotiated is going to go to members of Parliament, and members of Parliament can debate it line by line and say whether they agree with it or not. At this point, if you're playing poker and you're going to say to Europe, hey, guys, this is what we can have, this is what you can't have, and therefore we're going to go to Europe,
you don't think maybe having an amendment that says EU nationals resident here and UK nationals resident in the EU can stay would be perceived perhaps favourably by the 27 other member states and would actually be received very warmly by the British people?
We can't make that part of a bill because that's dependent on other EU nations.
Yes.
I mean,
it's a statement of intent.
Yeah, but we can't make that promise because we do not know what's going to happen to those people who are living elsewhere. So it might be a lovely idea, but it's not practical. What I think is that there's a lot of talk about how this is a divorce, isn't it? We are now being divorced in Europe. Having been through many divorces myself, what normally happens is, and you would know this as a lawyer, that maybe not be your area of law, is that the two sides sit in separate rooms and then the lawyers shuttle back and forth, and then they come back and they say...
up and up and up and up and up.
And the lawyer says, well, they say you can have this and this, but you're not having that. And you go absolutely berserk and say, that's outrageous, I can't bear this. And then they talk you down. And in the end, you get a deal. And nobody is happy because you do not get what you want. But what makes it what you do is you do it in a room, usually in one day.
OK,
and
but
the point being,
we've had 2 weeks of chat which have ended up exactly where we were at the beginning.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is that as soon as you start involving lots of different people, they all start sticking their oar in.
We've involved lots of different people. We've had 2 weeks listening to them all, and at the end of it, we're exactly where we were 2 weeks ago.
And that was always going to be the case.
So what was the point? That's my question.
Because they were forced to do it by the High Court. That's the point.
No, we're forced to do it because we live under a parliamentary democracy.
Yes,
that's
and there was a referendum. And I get a bit tired of these endless talk about statistics. The fact is, when we have an election in this country, again, it doesn't matter if they win by one seat. There we are. If you voted on the wrong side, your views are not listened to.
Just want to bring Dominic, because time is short.
Well, I mean, the point is, it's good for politicians and good for lawyers, so no point rhyme must be thrilled. But look, what interests me is it is just on that clause that we are going to trigger. And they did say that at the very outset. When that court case was brought to the Supreme Court, everyone said...
The question is, have the last 2 weeks been a waste of everyone's time when at the end of 2 weeks we are exactly...
I think probably yes.
Exactly where we were when we started.
Probably yes.
Right.
Probably yes. But what's interesting to me is you had a majority of MPs who were Remain, but they obeyed the British people, which I think is a robust democracy. But also,
although in some cases have totally undermined their own constituents, which is also democratic, but one might argue undemocratic.
And we'll play out as we see. But what I also
legally elected by their MPs as opposed to an advisory referendum.
Another point worth making is the impotence of Labour. And I think Labour are a party seriously struggling to form any opposition, which is not good for our democracy.
No, and also, if you look at the number of amendments, most of those amendments were put forward by people who didn't want Brexit anyway.
Yes. Do feel free to comment and give us a thumbs up if you feel inclined. For more clips from the show and exclusive behind-the-scenes videos, click here. If you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button here to be automatically informed when new videos are available. Links to our other social media platforms can be found in the description. Thanks for watching.